Indo-Canadian MP Chandra Arya has been barred from participating in the race to select the next leader of the ruling Liberal Party. In the wake of the communication from the party, the three-term MP said the decision raised questions about the legitimacy of the leadership race. In fact, Arya was aiming to run to be the next Prime Minister of Canada after PM Justin Trudeau announced his decision to resign. The Liberal MP had promised to lead a small, more efficient government to rebuild the nation and secure prosperity for the future generations. Arya, who was the first to announce his candidacy to replace Prime Minister Trudeau, said he is waiting on official communication from the Liberals and is considering his next steps. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney are widely seen as the frontrunners. Meanwhile, former Indo-Canadian MP Ruby Dhalla has announced that she will participate in the leadership race of the ruling Liberal Party to succeed Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Well, let me go over to my guests to discuss this at this hour. I will be joined on the show by Terry Milewski, who is a retired senior correspondent with CBC. We'll also be joined by Tara Karta in a bit. But let me go over to Mr. Milewski. Sir, you know, the fact that Chandra Arya has said that it casts aspersions on the legitimacy of the race. What do you have to say on that?
Well, he's, in a way, this is a rather unfair way to do it, to kick him out of the race without giving reasons. But I assume that during the course of the day, it's still early morning here in Ottawa, that those reasons will be communicated by the party. At least they'd better be, otherwise they'll look pretty silly. The problem, of course, as everyone has known from the start with Mr. Arya's campaign, and I speak as one of his constituents, he's my MP here in Ottawa, is that he doesn't speak French, not at all. And that is an essential element for anyone running, for any party leadership in Canada. People were very surprised that he ran. Not only did he run without speaking French at all, but he went on the CBC and said that he didn't think that that was important to people in Quebec. Well, that's nonsense, of course. The Quebecers have been fighting to maintain their language as one of Canada's two official languages for decades now, and they have succeeded in establishing that nobody's going to run and win if they don't speak French. So he could only have hogged airtime, taken time away from more prominent candidates that the party is trying to promote as a potential prime minister, a winner in the next election, some way of pulling the fat out of the fire and getting the Liberals back on track to get re-elected, but they didn't want airtime and attention being bled away from the leading candidates by somebody who didn't even speak French. I think it's as simple as that.
Well, there are lots of reports that he's been pulled out due to public statements and past improper conduct. Would you say not speaking French and then, you know, going to television channels and other media platforms and claiming that he isn't fluent with French is something that will be considered as improper conduct by the party?
Well, yes, I think the party considers it to be disqualifying. I mean, you can't just write off, you know, more than 70 parliamentary seats in Quebec, and this would be his candidacy if he were to win. The Liberal leadership would be regarded, I think, as a bit of a joke in Quebec, notwithstanding the fact that Mr. Arya is a serious person, and he has also rubbed some people up the wrong way because, as you know, all the Canadian political parties have been playing nice, shall we say, with Khalistani elements which are prominent in Canada, and Arya is an exception who has stood up foursquare against them. So he has made some friends among the Indo-Canadian community, but not with the Khalistani minority. And so I think that because he stirred up trouble on that score, he has clashed, for example, with another fellow Liberal backbench MP, Sue Dhaliwal, who is at present peddling an absurd petition trying to get Parliament to blame India for blowing up Air India Flight 182 in 1985, the Kanishka bombing.
Right.
Chandra Arya would have none of it. He stood up against that. And so I think he's antagonized some people in the party who want to keep the alliance with the Khalistanis going and don't want to talk about it too much.
Mark, Carney has received public support from 52 Liberal MPs compared to 26 for Chrystia Freeland. Do you think he is in a pole position right now?
Yes, I think that you can tell from that. It's a very new race. It's being run on a very accelerated schedule. And for people to be flocking to his side suggests that he's going to run away with this and that Chrystia Freeland is simply considered to be too close to Trudeau. If this is to be a change election, which is what most people say, the pollsters all say that the voters want it, they're looking for change. They don't want somebody who has been so closely allied with Justin Trudeau, notwithstanding that Chrystia Freeland has been saying that she's new and she's different and she's going to lead the change. Well, she's been joined at the hip to Trudeau ever since the Liberals were elected in 2015. She's been the minister of everything. She's been his deputy prime minister, his foreign minister, finance minister, you name it. She's been the minister of everything and a very valued member of the government, always seen at Trudeau's right hand. So people don't want that. They want to turn from that. So they want an outsider, and Carney is running as a real outsider, not a fake one.
Mr. Milewski, do you think Ruby Dhalla can shake up the Canada PM's race?
I doubt it. I think that she's looking for attention, as Mr. Arya was, as politicians do. A lot of people do run in order to get some face time on TV. Backbench members of Parliament or former members of Parliament don't get much attention, and this is one way to do it. And that's one reason why the party has said no to Mr. Arya, poor fellow. As I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily fair, but who said politics has to be fair? I think Ruby Dhalla is certainly a credible candidate, but I think that she's going to be in it mainly to position herself for the next election.
Mr. Milewski, I barely have time for one last question. Let me ask you, is Donald Trump's tariff threats shaping this race for Prime Minister's office?
To some degree, yes. There's no doubt about it, because all of the parties are seized with this. What are we going to do? This could devastate the Canadian economy if he goes all the way. And even those who say, no, it's just about, this is typical Trump. His bark is worse than his bite, and he's not going to go all the way, and he'll only beat us up a little instead of a lot. So what they're looking for is a firm stand. Canadians are pretty well united, the polls say, around the idea which all the candidates espouse, that we've got to retaliate with dollar-for-dollar tariffs, aiming to hit the Americans where it hurts, in districts where Mr. Trump's donors and supporters and cabinet members live, to make sure they feel the pain, because a lot of the pain from these tariffs is going to fall on the Americans.
And what kind of ties will really India be looking to have with Canada when its new Prime Minister comes in?
Well, I think there's room for a cooling of tensions between India and Canada. I think there's room now, taking the Modi-Trudeau, there you see them pretending to be getting along when you and I both know, no, they didn't get along one bit. The absence of Trudeau is certainly going to lower the temperature. I don't think it means that there's going to be a solution. I don't think it means that Canada is going to withdraw, even if it could. The police allegations, and they are allegations by Canada's federal police force, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, not by politicians. They're not politically engineered. The charges that the Modi government was involved in the murder of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, in 23. I don't think that's going to disappear, but I do think the two sides may find a way to talk again and perhaps to restore to some degree their diplomatic relations. I hope so. And then that way lies a way forward to perhaps a negotiated solution.
Also, given that Canada has a very large expat Indian community, what kind of favors would India, the government of India, be looking for or expecting from the new Canadian government for them?
Well, the Indian side, let's face it, has been asking for decades now, for at least 40 years since I've been covering this story. They've been asking for Canada, and the US for that matter, and the UK, but mainly Canada, to take seriously India's national security concerns. They repeatedly put forward, the Indians that is, they repeatedly put forward, we want the return of these people, a long named list of what they allege are Khalistani terrorists, as India designates them as terrorists, and Canada routinely refuses on the grounds that the evidence is insufficient and that what Canada calls a terrorist is somebody exercising their free speech and not doing any violence in the Canadian view. So they're going to have to reach an accommodation on that. Canada's going to have to give something in order to get in the door with the Indians, but I think the Indians also will look. They have so many thousands Indian students, for example, who want to study in Canada and are having trouble with visas and all of that kind of thing. Both sides will want to have a cooling of tensions and a rapprochement, even though it may be difficult to negotiate. It won't be impossible.
Mr. Milewski, there being a lot of confusion over the H-1B visa right now. Do you think that will also help Canada to attract a large number of Indians, a huge Indian traffic towards their country?
It's a good question. It won't hurt, will it? It seems to me obvious that Indian students, shall we say, are voting with their feet. They want to take advantage of the comparatively lower education costs and the relatively good quality of the education that they can get, the qualifications that they can come away with in Canada. And both sides India wants those well-educated engineers and scientists to come back from, say, learning at one of the best tech schools, a university in Waterloo in Ontario. They want those people to come back to India, and those that stay in Canada and work here, Canada's glad to have them. So it's a talent stream for both countries that should be made healthy again, instead of having obstacles and delays because of this diplomatic spat. That's why I think both sides, or one reason anyway, why both sides I think will want to sweep away these obstacles. It won't be fast and it won't be easy, but I think it has to happen.
Terry Milewski, thank you very much for joining us on the broadcast this evening and sharing your views.